It's really a depressing, even though there's humor and there's a lot going on with this guy, but at the end of the day, I mean, he's got a lot of shit to deal with.
Yeah, he was given this gift, or curse as he calls it, to be able to see the world behind the world. He can see, the angels and the demons. He has found out.
It feels like a low level of despair you live in, where you're not getting any answers, but you're living okay, and you can smile at the office, but it's a low level of despair.
For over 3 decades, Jim Carrey was the face of wild, untamed comedy. But in February this year, there were claims of a man who looked like Jim Carrey stepped onto the stage of César Awards show, replacing him in front of his millions of fans.
My favorite funny face is the one I'm wearing right now.
Something was deeply, deeply wrong. And when Keanu Reeves, one of Carrey's best friends, broke his silence, his words revealed how one of Hollywood's most beloved actors was quietly replaced for exposing the industry giants.
They're fun, they're interesting. The demons with the kind of the scooped out brains, the seat of the soul, seat of the will being removed, and that's what a demon is. It's only one thing, it's a hunger that can't be satisfied, and he has no self-will, no self-determination.
Now, to understand exactly what happened to Jim Carrey, we need to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 3. This was a massive, high-budget blockbuster. Carrey was returning to play his role as the frantic villain, Dr. Robotnik, and they brought in Keanu Reeves to voice the dark, brooding anti-hero known as Shadow the Hedgehog. 2 legends working together on what should have been a fun, family-friendly movie. But what happened behind those closed doors was not a normal thing. During the filming of Sonic 3, Keanu noticed something was seriously wrong with his co-star. Both of them spent a lot of time talking privately. And during those conversations, something happened that Keanu would later describe as Jim Carrey breaking down.
And at a certain point, I realized, hey, wait a second, if it's so easy to lose Jim Carrey, who the hell is Jim Carrey?
Carrey told Reeves about the enormous pressure he was living under. He talked about Hollywood elites who were threatening his career and livelihood. These powerful, unseen forces were demanding that he stay completely silent about hidden information and dark secrets he had gathered over his many years at the absolute top of Hollywood. Carrey was terrified. He was a man trapped in a corner, knowing that these industry players were closing in on him every single day.
And I'd tell him, okay, this is what I plan to do tomorrow, possibly, and he'd do that. And then when I was Gerald, I would say, this is what I remember that I did yesterday. It was wild.
Keanu witnessed the pressure this hidden battle was taking on his friend. He saw the fear in Jim's eyes and heard the desperation in his voice. This wasn't just stress from making a movie. This was a man who felt like he was running out of time. And then, a few months later, the 2026 César Awards took place. The world saw the frozen-faced, green-eyed, right-handed man walking on that Paris stage, and when Keanu saw it, he knew what had happened to his friend. He realized that the man he had just worked with on Sonic 3 had been quietly removed from Hollywood's inner circle.
But I didn't want to, I didn't want to say the name or invoke anything out there. I didn't want any darkness. I felt like.
In a discussion with Hollywood insiders, Keanu Reeves made the decision to go public. He issued a quiet warning to the dark forces trying to manipulate the narrative. By exposing the truth of what he witnessed on that movie set, Reeves became a rare whistleblower from inside the absolute highest level of the film industry. He risked his own safety, his career, and possibly his life to ensure that Jim Carrey's total erasure from the world did not go unnoticed by the public.
There's something so pure about playing a villain like that. It's, the villains have such great passion. It's like and it's uncomplicated. It's like, I want, I need, I must have,
When you look at the timeline, it all makes sense. The private breakdowns, immense pressure, and so many desperate phone calls. And then, suddenly, the man who knew too much was gone, replaced by something that couldn't speak the truth.
I don't believe I'm real, but if I play a character who's struggling, which most of them are, I have to believe entirely in his plight.
Now here's the million-dollar question. Why would anyone go to the extreme lengths we've been talking about to get rid of one comedian? I mean, think about it. What could Jim Carrey possibly know that was worth all this? The answer lies in the world of the global elite, and it's darker than most people want to imagine. Jim Carrey spent decades at the absolute top of Hollywood. When you're that famous, you get access to things that normal people would never see. You get invited to parties where the real power players do business. You meet people who control governments, corporations, media empires. And as a member of that A-list elite, Jim Carrey saw the inner workings of some very dark systems. Now, I'm sure you've heard about Jeffrey Epstein by now. The flight logs, private island, the network of blackmail and illegal human transportation that connected the most powerful people on Earth. Politicians, billionaires, Hollywood stars, executives. All of them tied together in a web of secrets and favors. This wasn't just some weird guy with a ranch. This was a full-blown operation that involved the kind of people who never face consequences for their actions. And Jim Carrey was right there in the middle of it.
Every fake news is saying you are not Jim Carrey. That's true or not? Please give answer. After Epstein files, you actually say something. That's true or not? Are you true? You same man?
As part of the elite circle, he knew who was on those flights. He knew who visited that island. He knew which directors, which studio executives, which famous actors were involved in the dark practices of the global elite. For years, he kept his head down. But as he got older, Carrey went through this spiritual awakening. He stopped caring about protecting the industry that had made him wealthy. And suddenly, this man who had spent decades keeping secrets was ready to talk.
When I'm not caught up in the little movie in my head, projecting fear and doubt on the future, I love to get to a place where I feel like I'm all that is, was, and ever will be, and that's what we all are, I believe. You know, we're sharing one soul, and this finite mind is how God entertains himself.
If Jim Carrey, one of the most famous and beloved actors in the world, decided to open his mouth and tell the truth about what he knew, it would be worse. Not just for Hollywood, for everyone involved in doing wrong stuff. The entire system relies on the promise that what happens in those elite circles stays in those elite circles. When someone threatens to break that code of silence, they become a problem, and the elite don't solve problems by having conversations. They solve them more permanently. That's why the pressure started ramping up during Sonic 3. According to reports, he was getting threats, which is why he told Keanu he was terrified. The elites knew he could walk into an interview tomorrow and say things that would bring down empires. The only solution was to remove the unpredictable human element entirely. They couldn't kill him, obviously. That would raise too many questions. But they could do something else. They could replace him. They could create a version of Jim Carrey that would smile for the cameras, wave to the fans, attend the award shows, and never, ever threaten the power structure. A perfect puppet that would never talk, never break, never expose anything. And that's exactly what happened.
Everyone is talking about Jim Carrey right now. He made a recent appearance and he just doesn't look like himself. So a lot of people are speculating. Did he get replaced, or what's really going on?
Now, if you've been watching Jim Carrey over the years, you know he's always been this bundle of pure energy. He's the guy who could make any face, any expression, any sound. He was chaos in human form, and that's what made him so incredible. But the man on that Paris stage, he was like someone had taken all that energy and just sucked it right out. And here's where it gets really crazy. Just a few months before this, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony in Los Angeles, Jim Carrey looked completely normal. But suddenly, in Paris, he's got jet black hair grown down to his shoulders, parted right down the middle. He's wearing this sleek black tuxedo with a buttoned-up shirt and a bow tie, looking like some kind of robot trying to play dress-up. The man who once couldn't sit still for 5 seconds was now standing there like a statue. People lost their minds, as one user commented saying, "What I find most disturbing is the fact that he not only looks so strange, but that he doesn't even sound like Jim Carrey anymore." Another one added, "Why would someone who relies on minute facial expressions go under procedures that remove the ability to make minute facial expressions. Okay, so let me break this down because the evidence here is enough to make y'all understand this whole situation. Let's start with the face. Jim Carrey built his entire career on having the most expressive face in Hollywood. Those muscles could do anything. He could make you laugh, cry, or feel completely unsettled just by moving his eyebrows in a certain way. But in his recent appearance, his face wasn't moving at all. It was like someone had replaced all his facial muscles with frozen ice. He couldn't do any of the things that made Jim Carrey, Jim Carrey. And then there's this talk going around about his eyes. Jim Carrey has had dark brown eyes his entire life, but the eyes of the man on that Paris red carpet? They were pale hazel, bordering on bright green.
Next, as you can see all the way up at the top, Jim Carrey's eye color has been brown literally his entire life, and the other day when he was spotted on an award show, his eye color was actually light green.
When people started pointing this out, the usual suspects came out with their excuses. They said it was the camera flash and wearing colored contact lenses, but it sounds pretty unrealistic because we know our eye color doesn't just transform into an entirely different shade because of bright lights. That's not how things work. And if he really was wearing colored contacts, why didn't anyone mention that before everyone started asking questions about Carrey being replaced by his clone? The desperation was real, and it was obvious. But here's the thing that really got people talking. For decades, Jim Carrey has been documented over and over again as a left-handed man. Every time he signed an autograph for a fan, he used his left hand. However, the footage from outside the César Awards showed this new version of Carrey grabbing pens and signing autographs with his right hand. The right-handed writing proved that the mind inside that body was not the mind of the man born in Canada in 1962.
Jim Carrey has also had the same signature for literally his entire life, and when he was at that same exact award show the other day, he ended up signing some things for some fans, and his signature completely changed.
To understand how Jim Carrey went from beloved comedian to public enemy #1 for the elite, we need to go back to 2014, when he walked onto Jimmy Kimmel Live stage and flashed this triangular hand gesture with his tongue sticking out through the center of his fingers. When Kimmel tried to play dumb and act like he didn't know what was happening, Carrey looked directly into the camera and explained what he was doing. He claimed he was sick of the secrets, lies, and was there to expose the hidden secret societies that run the industry from the shadows. During this segment, Carrey referred to this powerful group as the Illuminati.
I'm sick and tired of the secrets and the lies. It is the secret symbol of the Illuminati, and you're a part of it, and it is the all-mocking tongue.
Now, you don't have to be a genius to figure out what he meant by that. It's a very obvious reference to the so-called secret society. He was telling the audience on national television that these people control Hollywood, and he's done pretending like he doesn't know anything about it. Fans knew exactly what they were witnessing. Carrey was using his status as a beloved comedian to tell millions of people the truth about what was happening behind the scenes. He was mocking the secret societies right to their faces, and on their own television network. He was showing them that he knew their symbols, and he was no longer afraid of their power. That night, he painted a massive target on his own back. Before that moment, he was just an actor who knew things, but kept quiet. After that moment, he proved he could not be controlled, and the countdown to his eventual removal from the cool club of Hollywood officially began.
Actor and comedian Jim Carrey has raised eyebrows during a rare red carpet appearance at the French Film Awards, and Kinsey, fans were shocked by his very different look, some claiming this man could even be an imposter.
In 1998, Jim Carrey starred in The Truman Show. Now, most people watched this movie and thought it was a clever, heartwarming comedy about reality television and privacy in the modern age. And on the surface, that's exactly what it is. But if you go deeper, you find something much more messy. The movie is actually a pure, unhidden prophecy about Jim Carrey's own life. In the ancient spiritual teachings of Gnosticism, the physical world is viewed as a fake, artificial prison. This prison was created by an evil, false god known as the Demiurge. Now, stay with me here because this is important. In The Truman Show, Jim Carrey plays Truman Burbank. Truman is the only real, authentic soul trapped inside the town of Sea Haven, which is a giant, fake world located under an artificial dome. Every single person around him, his best friends, his neighbors, his co-workers, even his wife, they're all paid actors following a script. In the Gnostic framework, these actors represent the gatekeepers of the Matrix, who exist only to keep the true man asleep, distracted, and completely controlled. The creator and absolute ruler of this fake world is a television director named Christoph. Now, the name Christoph translates directly to Christ off, symbolizing the evil demiurge who rules over the material trap from a control room in the fake moon. This character sits up there in his control room, playing God, manipulating Truman's entire reality. The movie shows the true man slowly waking up to the fact that his entire reality is an illusion. He notices the repeating patterns of the actors, the glitching technology, the fake, painted sky. And in order to escape, he has to conquer his deepest fears, specifically his terrifying fear of water, and sail a small boat to the very edge of the artificial dome. When his boat literally crashes into the painted wall of the fake sky, he finds a literal exit door. Christoph speaks to him from the clouds, playing the role of God, offering Truman endless comfort, fame, and safety if he simply stays asleep in the fake world. But Truman chooses the unknown truth. He steps through the door, freeing himself from the artificial matrix.
Was nothing real.
You were real.
The elite in Hollywood love to hide their true intentions in their movies. It's what they do, and by casting Jim Carrey as the true man, they were showing him exactly what his life was going to become. Carrey was surrounded by fake friends, controlled by powerful directors, and living inside a massive dome of global fame and wealth. He was the real Truman. But here's the thing about prophecies. Sometimes they backfire. Hollywood's plan was to show Jim Carrey his place, to make him trapped in his own cage. But instead, he actually watched the movie and understood that it was the exact blueprint of his own entrapment. The fake world, paid actors, the controller in the sky, it all matched what he was experiencing in Hollywood. And instead of accepting it, he started looking for his own exit door. Just like Truman, Jim Carrey began to wake up. And when you wake up in a world that depends on you staying asleep, you become the enemy of these power players.
They say they're celebrating icons inside.
Celebrating
Do you believe
icons,
in
boy, that is just the absolute lowest aiming, possibility that we could come up with. It's like icons. Do you believe in icons?
If you want to understand why Jim Carrey became such a threat to Hollywood, you really need to understand where he came from. This isn't a story about some privileged kid who had everything handed to him. This is a story about a guy who started with absolutely nothing. Jim Carrey was born in Canada, and his family fell on hard times. They were so poor that he was forced to drop out of high school at just 16 years old. He wasn't doing this because he didn't care about education. He was doing it because his family needed the money. They were living in a Volkswagen van, and this wasn't some cute, adventurous van life situation. This was survival. They'd drive around trying to stay warm during the Canadian winters, and Jim would work these miserable factory jobs just to keep everyone fed. Can you imagine that? A 16-year-old kid dropping out of school to work in factories so his family wouldn't starve. That's the foundation of who Jim Carrey was before any of this started. But still, he had this dream. He wanted to be a comedian. So while working these exhausting jobs, he'd spend his free time trying to break into the comedy clubs. Night after night of bombing on stage. It was hell, but he kept going. He believed in himself even when no one else did. Then came 1994, and everything changed. In that single year, Jim Carrey starred in 3 massive comedy films: Ace Ventura, Pet Detective: The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. All 3 came out in 1994, and became huge hits. Carrey went from being a struggling artist living in a van to the biggest, highest-paid comedy star on the entire planet overnight. The industry had given him the golden ticket with millions of dollars. And you know what he did when he got there? He looked around and realized he had been fooled around.
Beyond the red S that you wear on your chest that makes bullets bounce off, I believe that it's deeper than that.
This is the thing that nobody talks about enough. Carrey reached the absolute peak of success, the place where everyone assumes happiness lives, and he discovered it was all completely empty. All those years he thought money and fame would fill some void, and instead he found out the void was still there.
I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to and join, and here I am. I mean, you got to admit it's completely meaningless.
Think about how serious that statement is. He's basically telling everyone that the dream they've been chasing their entire lives is a lie. Because here's the thing, Hollywood's entire business model depends on people wanting what celebrities have. It depends on awards shows that make fame look glamorous. It depends on the illusion that wealth and success will make you happy. So everyone keeps buying tickets, watching movies, and consuming the product. And Jim Carrey, one of the most successful people in the history of the industry, was standing up and telling everyone it was all a lie. That's when things started changing. He stopped identifying with his Hollywood identity. He realized the famous Jim Carrey was just a character, a fake rubber mask created by the industry to entertain the masses. He changed his entire philosophy and started saying he was no longer a personality with an ego, but just a field of energy experiencing the world without attachment. And here's why that mattered so much to the people at the top. When you have the biggest, most successful star in the world publicly declaring that the entire system is a fraud, you have a serious problem. Jim Carrey was waking people up. He was showing them that the emperor has no clothes, and the matrix cannot function if too many people start seeing through the illusion.
You know, grief and sadness and all those things are the ticket home to nothing. I think that was a part of the process. There's been several other awakenings, and yet still I have a lot of egoic attachments that pull my attention and focus. I think
the elite don't usually go straight for the throat. They're much crazier than that. They prefer to break people slowly, using the legal system, the tabloids, and the media to drain their targets of money, destroy their public image, and slowly shatter their spirit. And that's exactly what happened to Jim Carrey. In 2015, his former girlfriend, Catriona White, passed away from a fatal overdose of prescription medication. But here's what most people don't know. Some people saw an opportunity in that tragedy, and they seized it with both hands. After White's passing, her estranged husband, Mark Burton, and her mother, Bridget Sweetman, filed highly publicized lawsuits against Jim Carrey. Bridget accused him of illegally obtaining highly addictive painkillers under a fake name and supplying them to Catriona despite knowing about her struggles with depression. The lawsuit painted him as some kind of bad guy who drove his girlfriend to his end. But wait, because the allegations became even more personal. Mark Burton officially alleged that Carrey had transmitted multiple diseases to Catriona, lied to her about it, and then dumped her when she confronted him, causing her to take her own life. The media outlets were filled with these false claims. Every news outlet was running stories about how the beloved comedian was actually a manipulative guy, and it was happening while Carrey was already going through the loss of someone he loved. But Jim Carrey is not stupid, and when his legal team started digging, they uncovered something very shocking. The entire lawsuit was built on fake evidence. Carrey's attorneys demanded the actual medical records regarding the disease, and when the documents were finally scanned, they found a 2011 medical record showing Catriona was disease-free before she even met Carrey. The accusers had created fake medical records to extort money from Carrey and destroy his image. Because of this false evidence, the lawsuits were dismissed and thrown out of court by a judge. Carrey technically won the argument. But here's the thing that nobody really talks about. He won the legal battle, but he lost the war because by that point, many years had already passed. Years of being dragged through the mud and watching a deep personal tragedy be turned into a global media circus designed to destroy him. And that kind of pain does permanent damage. It exhausts you in ways you can't even describe. It breaks something inside you that never fully heals.
I turned 16. The day I turned 16, I dropped out of school.
Because?
Well, my family had, kind of hit the skids. We were, experiencing poverty at that point, and we got a job where the whole family had to work as security guards and
The industry giants used the lawsuit as a tool to drain Carrey, his finances, his energy, and his will to fight. It also worked perfectly on Carrey because he was never the same after that. The light in his eyes dimmed. The fire that made him so special started to fade. The message was clear. Step out of line and we will use every tool at our disposal to harm your reality. However, despite everything that had happened, Jim Carrey still wasn't ready to play ball. The divide between him and the Hollywood elite became permanent when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at Oscars night. But what does the entire room of Hollywood elites do? Well, they gave Will Smith a great standing ovation after he won the Best Actor award. Most celebrities stayed quiet about it, but not Jim Carrey. He went on television and shared his unfiltered opinion. He called the entire Hollywood establishment spineless and said the standing ovation actually sickened him.
I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. And it really felt like, oh, this is a really clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore.
By openly calling out the deep moral bankruptcy of his peers, Carrey had cut his final ties with the industry. Later that same year, while doing press to promote the second Sonic the Hedgehog film, he shocked reporters by announcing he was fairly serious about retiring from acting.
No.
Yeah, probably.
Are you being serious or are you screwing with me?
I'm being fairly serious, yeah.
Really?
But the system doesn't allow its top assets to simply walk away, especially not when they have the kind of knowledge Jim Carrey had. A quiet retirement in Hawaii was not enough to guarantee his silence. As long as Jim Carrey was free, he was a threat. If he was truly retired, he had nothing left to lose. He could go on any show, any platform, and tell the world everything he knew about the Epstein files, the secret societies, the blackmail networks. The people who control this industry could not let that happen. Therefore, an honest man like Jim Carrey was quietly removed from the board, and his replacement was put into production to maintain the illusion of his existence. He tried to walk away, find peace, and tried to escape through the exit door like Truman. But the Matrix does not allow escapes, not for someone who knows as much as Jim Carrey knew. What's your take on this whole situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more videos.